I do have skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Alright people, so this is the court security jersey section of Chris's emails to me. Such a busy guy, he must be having his head spin. If this was on the May the 10th, dear Mr. Keane, two matters. First, I have not, nor would I, lie to you. Oh, I'm not saying you have lied to me, Chris. I'm saying that you're telling me untruths from the ministry's viewpoint, or the ministry's point of view. I don't know you personally. I can't say whether you're a truthful man or not, but when you're acting in the position of the ministry and you're trying to tell me things weren't recorded, when I know for a fact and they were verified at the time they were, then to me that is a lie. Not you personally, Chris. We don't want to defame or have any libel or slander anywhere. No, no, no. No, nothing is meant personally to you. But if you're going to take the position of expressing the ministry's viewpoint or position, then I will respond to you as the ministry's representative. Nothing more. You are perfectly entitled to disagree with what I have said in my emails and to publish that. Well, I know I am. Don't need you to back that. That is generally protected by Section 14 of New Zealand Bora. Thanks for confirming my standpoint. However, you overstep. Me? Overstep? The line when you make and publish unfounded and defamatory comments about me personally. Someone's sensitive, aren't they? I was talking to him as an agent of the Crown. If he can't handle the shit he's going to cop as a result of them failing to do their job properly, and then say that he's immune anyway, okay? If you can't handle speaking for the ministry or acting in a position as a ministry's legal solicitor, get another fucking job. But don't think I'm having a personal attack at you. This is to do with the ministry. I mean, it says right here, Senior Solicitor, Office of Legal Counsel, Ministry of Justice. It doesn't say Chris Hurd, resident of blah blah blah, individual private personal citizen. No, you're acting in a position. Crazy. And I'm also entitled to my opinion, I'd point out. My opinion that I can back with facts and evidence and witnesses isn't an opinion. It's based on fact. That is not protected by Section 14. Freedom of expression is protected by Section 14. And sometimes when people express their views, it can be considered to be offensive. Otherwise, why would everybody talk about the same shit they all agree about all the time? The whole point of having discussions and being able to express things is so other people may find it offensive and wake the fuck up. Second, what I am doing when I correspond with you is to tell you the ministry's position on matters that affect it. I know. That's all I'm talking to you as, Chris. In this case, the ministry's concern is that people will mistakenly think you are an employee of and represent the ministry if you wear a jersey with the New Zealand coat of arms saying Court Security Officer or, well done Chris, Court Security Officer Auditor in public. The addition of the word auditor does not change the ministry's concern. I give a fuck. As a member of the public would have no reason to think that that is not a real position. As I said before, perhaps there should be one. Then you guys might do your shit better. However, if you take further steps to modify the jersey as you have suggested, remember the Ghostbuster sign and not a, which makes it clear that you are not a Ministry of Government employee, then that is acceptable to the ministry. Oh, thank you so much, ministry, for accepting that. That is just, I just wouldn't have done it otherwise. If you didn't give me the go-ahead, by fucking God, I just would have stopped. Pull your head in. Something that's fictional does not control what I do. End fucking of. My response to Chris on the 11th of May. Good afternoon, Chris. In reply to your two matters, lying and defamatory comments. As you, the ministry, not thou personally, Chris, have stated that the court audio recording system, or CARS, had not been started, or a button had not been pressed, this is untrue or a lie. As myself and another first-hand witness that was present on that day can verify that the system was confirmed to be operating, this was verified and confirmed by Her Honour Judge Mathers and the court taker clerk, who you have refused to identify. As for overstepping, you saw fit to point out that you have no reason to question the validity of my jersey being found by my friend 3 years ago. A very backhanded way of implying this may be untrue, otherwise why bring it up? Unless you have a first-hand witness that confirm that what was stated that day and on record to be false, the CARS operating, thus misleading the court, be it through errors or omission, it shall continue to be untrue. And irrespective of the CARS allegedly not being started, this does not explain the 6+ physical exhibits from the witness and myself entered on the 9th of February also being missing from the complete case file, which I collected and verified a copy of on the 15th of March. No explanation on that one. Chris, thou did however mention that the staff can't get up and leave in relation to being recorded, whereas they can get up any time and walk away. They are not chained to the counter, are they? After all, they're immune, right? I have not made any defamatory comments in respect to thou personally, Chris, as I have not dealt with you on a personal level, and only as an agent of the Crown. I have stated facts which can be verified if required. If you, the Ministry, wish to back your, the Ministry's claim that the CARS was not activated, this would require evidence. If you choose to make a statement, be it through third-hand information without first-hand knowledge that is known by myself and others to be untrue due to the evidence to the contrary, then you should accept the consequences. By stating something as fact to be known as false, especially when someone who has first-hand knowledge of the facts, perhaps not stating untruths, would be an acceptable alternative. If this was done due to incorrect or false information, if you, the Ministry, wish to challenge myself on what happened, or attempt to push the unverifiable narrative that the CARS was not operating, you can expect a rebuttal. You may accept information to be true without verifying. That is your choice. But to hold this as your position without facts is unwise, especially when I have evidence and knowledge to the contrary. What defamatory comment are you alleging I have made about you personally, Chris? As the Ministry has again and again proven itself to be untrustworthy, and you are representing it. As I do not know you, Chris, personally, and only as a representative of the Ministry of Justice, I am stating that the Ministry of Justice is making false statements. That the fact you, Chris, have failed to supply any legislation to support your opinion of your own, that recording in public requires consent, it shall remain just an opinion. You, Chris, saw fit to supply legislation in respect of immunity, your coat of arms threatening email, yet cannot back your opinion in respect to public photography. Why? Could none exist? Clearly, I have recorded many times inside Auckland District Court, yet have not been charged with an offence. Is that because it is not an offence? Or does the request, suggestion or opinion to prohibit my rights and freedoms not have anything giving it legal force or effect? Is there a legislative reference on your terms and conditions which you, Chris, have still failed to supply? I may have expressed my opinion in accordance with Bora Section 14. However, as you are representing the Ministry, given the Ministry is simply a fictional entity, it is void of emotion and cannot take anything personally. My opinion, which I openly share, is based on facts which I have proof of. You, the Ministry, have claimed the CARS was not started, whereas I know this to be untrue, as you cannot provide evidence to the contrary, and I have evidence supporting my position. As there is no intent to defame you in any way personally, and I have no malice towards thou, Chris, I am entitled to my opinion. You, the ministry, choose to insist the recording was not activated, without supplying any evidence to support it. I, however, do have evidence supporting it was, along with an independent witness that was also present. As you have chosen to continue to correspond with me, given my expressed wishes that you, Chris, do not, and again make subtle threats in the process, myself and family again would like you to stop making threats of prosecution towards me. If you, Chris, wish to prosecute me, do so. However, if you make any more threats of prosecution causing me again to fear for my safety, I shall be filing a complaint for criminal harassment with the police against you, Chris. Again, I do not give two hoots if my duty is acceptable or not to yourself, Chris, personally, or the Ministry of Justice. It is simply due to you, the Ministry, making a threat of up to $5,000 fine that I have chosen at further costs to make additions to my possession to avoid another threat. Myself wearing a jersey in private or public has no effect on the Ministry and or its position, as I have given no other man or woman cause to believe I am a public servant, and if asked, that man or woman would be set straight without delay, unless, of course, you can provide evidence that I have. I would suggest the Ministry have no concern unless it has something to be concerned about. In this case, there is nothing apart from being exposed for the tyranny it exhibits through threats, coercion and intimidation, wasting resources, its lack of public trust and confidence, using force and threats to encourage voluntary compliance of its citizens. This is my opinion, based on first-hand accounts and evidence, an opinion shared by what it would appear other members of the public also, judging by the comments on many of my video clips. So, if you agree with that, by all means, express your opinions in the comment section. If you believe that the court system or the judicial system or that the government has your trust and confidence, say, it has my trust and confidence. If you believe they're a corrupt pack of bastards, then by all means, say, they're bastards. Okay? We'll see how many people, i.e. in a democratic society where the majority rules, we'll see how many of these comments will support my position or the Ministry's position. Okay? We'll leave it up to them. Please comment below on that one. Please do not threaten myself again. This is the last time I will accept being threatened by you, Chris, or the Ministry without seeking redress. You have been notified. With regards, me. Chris replied on May the 11th. And let's see, what time did I send that? I sent that at 2:26. At 3:33, just over an hour later, Chris responds. Good afternoon, Mark. That's Mark now. It's not Mr. Keane. I am not seeking to continue this correspondence. However, but, I feel there are two matters you mentioned in your email that need clarification. So he's going to continue correspondence anyway. Firstly, when I said that the Ministry had no reason to believe it was untrue that your friend had found the jersey in the rubbish, I meant just that. That line was intended to convey that we did not think you had stolen or otherwise unlawfully acquired it. To put it another way, we believe it probably came in the possession as you described. Or as you have no evidence to the contrary, again, your belief has got no consequence whatsoever. I don't give a shit about belief. Let's talk about facts and evidence, shall we, Chris? Fact is, that's what my friend told me. Fact is, that's how I got the jersey. Fact is, you have no evidence whatsoever that it didn't happen. And by you bringing that up is a very backhanded way of saying, well, we don't think you're lying. If you don't think I'm lying, why bring it up? Alright? Other than to backhandedly fucking try and slap me across the face. Not cool, and you got called out for it. Secondly, the prohibition on recording, now listen closely people, second, the prohibition on recording is civil law. Really? Still waiting for you to supply it? What's that law called, Chris? You got some legislation to point out this civil law you're referring to? not criminal law matter. It is not, of itself, a criminal offence to record in violation of the prohibition. That's because it's only a suggestion, a request. You're asking us nicely. There's no law saying we can't. And if you're saying it's recording this prohibition is on a civil law, then why don't you back it with something? Don't tell me to go read a fucking book. Supply what you're using to rely on. Rather, it engages the ministry's right to ask you to leave as the person with lawful possession of the building. So we're going back to the old chestnut of, we'll ask you to leave. Because we'll say we've asked you to leave, and then if you don't leave, then it's a criminal trespass. You have to give me the option to leave, however. You can't just hold me there because I'm recording, you know, because there's no law broken. And if there's a civil law, you still don't have the right to use force to retain me or to detain me. So yeah, they're going back to the old chestnut of asking me to leave, using a trespass. Okay? And yours sincerely, Chris again. Isn't he so sincere? My response to Chris, just over an hour after that one, at 4:49 is, "Good afternoon, Chris. I am pleased you are not seeking to continue this correspondence. However, it would appear you continue to do so regardless. Firstly, so the line was intended to convey that you, ministry, believed without facts yet again that I, or my friend for that matter, were not thieves? Probability does not come into it, Chris. I stand by the facts. As you have nothing to suggest to the contrary, you should have kept an unfounded opinion or belief to yourself as to avoid insulting someone you are to provide service to. Secondly, the prohibition is a civil law. Which one? Do you have a reference? Thank you for confirming that recording in public is not a criminal offence. Thank you for confirming you have no lawful ability to stop my recording in public, and that you would revert to the Trespass Act 1980 to have me leave, as you have no other authority to prohibit recording. You may ask or request for the public to not record at that public place, which as such can be refused or reproved. However, I tend to never refuse anything. I would be happy to not record if you could provide legislation supporting such a prohibition or restriction. Yet you cannot. This is a conditional acceptance, which to date you have not provided any legislation to support or satisfy. Policy does not overrule legislation and must be lawful. Again, with threats. Trespass, is it? If I was to again lawfully record at Auckland District Court a public building, that is the best you can do, go ahead. It would only enforce the apparent tyranny and avoidance of public accountability and transparency exhibited by such an action. I never seek to publish or record any private personal information of anyone, just the servants while acting in their public capacities and offices, and their actions and behaviours while accepting a wage from the public purse. So the fallback is to trespass someone that wishes to exercise their rights in a public place. That speaks volumes. If that is what you wish to do, should I intend again and choose to exercise my freedom, so be it. It will only reflect badly further for the Auckland District Court and Ministry of Justice. Not that the Auckland District Court or Ministry of Justice would care, as that would require a conscience, which a fictional entity does not have. Correct? Your unreasonable excuses so far are inadequate to suffice. I would point out that even if trespassed, Section 4, subsection 5, subsection B states, it was necessary for the defendant to commit the trespass for his own protection or for the protection of some other person or because of some emergency involving his property or the property of some other person. If I'm invited to court under threats of a fine or imprisonment or, how can we say this, for my own protection, then your trespass notice means jack squat. So if you want to be just like the Westgate Medical Centre, file a trespass notice, have it served. Next time I go in, it's going to be because for my own protection and the protection of my property or for another, then go right ahead. There's my defence right there. As the only reason for attending Auckland District Court would be for my own protection and defence against an allegation, or be invited via summons in the course of protecting my property rights or of another person or their property, I would still be able to attend irrespective of any trespass order. And again, I would be happy to have this settled in a court of law if necessary. I'm not afraid of going to court. I find it enjoyable. You have given examples using comparisons between my private property. This is where he says the common law where I can keep people off of my private property. My private property isn't open to the fucking public. The public court building is. There is a huge difference. One's an apple, one's an orange. You have given examples using comparisons between my private property and a public courthouse. These are not comparable. A private dwelling house cannot be recorded at night time. See peeping and peering. See section 30 of Summary Offences Act 1981, whereas I can record the public building all night long if I wish. Exchanging apples for oranges doesn't work, Chris. As my private property is not open to the public, unlike the Auckland District Court, it is completely different. I will end this line of correspondence with the fact that you have failed to supply any legislation or reasonable grounds to back such a prohibition on recording at Auckland District Court, and that you wish to use the threat of trespassing me if I record again at Auckland District Court as a deterrent, which is not accepted. End of discussion, unless you can actually supply reasonable grounds, legislation or justification for the Ministry of Justice doing the same thing for the same reasons. As I have been threatened and intimidated by Tim Black and Grant, former court security officer, I will be recording in future for my security. You've been notified. Enjoy your weekend. Me. And that ends recording in public buildings. Although I'm just going to read out this email here, which also, this was my response to him on the 10th of April, a month earlier. Good afternoon, Chris. Please see attached letter of response to your letter dated 10th of April. Now, I read that out in, I believe it's either part 27 of the $80 ticket saga, or I may have read it out in part 1 of the Great Jersey Drama. Also find attached the transcript from the 13th of July showing Judge Black's disgusting behaviour, New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990, District Court Access to Court Documents Rules 2017, along with our latest submissions for costs with relevant information included. We would suggest you supply evidence to back your statements in the future, as opposed to supplying opinions or beliefs absent facts. Have a great afternoon. Okay, and that's what I sent him on the April the 10th. On April 20th, Chris supplied me this, or sent me this. Dear Mr. Keane, signage at criminal counter. Ownership or lawful possession of a property building carries with it certain rights at common law. Better tell Burden to Ferrer that. He doesn't think we're in a common law country. Some of which have been codified, e.g. the Trespass Act 1980. Now I wonder why he brought that up. You yourself will exercise many of those rights on a daily basis, such as the right to refuse person entry to your home, which is a private property, not open to the public. And there is an implied right of access which I can easily refuse by expressing. See, the old rule is anything is implied unless expressed to the contrary. So everybody will have implied access to the front door of your house unless you have a whopping great no trespassing sign up expressing to the contrary. Do you see how that works? Something unrebutted stands as fact. Alright? Which is why I respond to when I'm getting accused of making defamatory comments. I don't let that stand, because that may, by not responding to that, I'm agreeing to it, which I don't. Where are we? I suggest you consult a property law textbook if you want more details on those rights. The main difference between a public building and a private one is that there is an implied license to enter and remain in a public building for lawful purposes, such as recording. For private property, there is only an implied license to go to the front door. That's just backing exactly what I just said. However, as with a private building, the owner or person in lawful possession of a public building can impose conditions of entry. Wonderful, so long as those conditions are lawful. Unlike a private building, any conditions of entry to a public building must be reasonable. Reasonableness being a requirement of all government decision making. Oh my God. Fuck. Can you smell the bullshit? Like the government makes any decision reasonably. I note you refer to Section 14 of the New Zealand BORA, Freedom of Expression. The rights and freedoms confirmed in BORA may be subject only to such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. So, I'm still waiting to see those reasonable limits prescribed by law. Okay. Still waiting. I haven't seen any of these reasonable limits or these prohibitions or the legislation that gives you reason to prohibit my freedoms in a free and democratic society if I'm in anything other than my body, because I live on Earth. See Section 5. See generally R.B. Henson, 2007, New Zealand, NZSC 7. The Ministry considers that to the extent that the prohibition on recording engages the right of freedom of expression, it constitutes a reasonable limit on the right for the reasons given in my letter. And that is where he's saying because some people find it offended, and it's where he's saying because staff can't get up and walk away. How fucking unreasonable is that? If there are people in public that have an unreasonable expectation of privacy, there's that reasonable and unreasonable specification there, then they shouldn't be in fucking public. They should fuck off somewhere quietly behind their closed curtains. In respect of your point 4, the conditions of entry are signposted. The relevant signs say simply, no recording. Okay, so why is the court recording? If it says simply no recording or similar, which clearly conveys the intention, no it doesn't, it says no recording. So I can't remember anything while I'm in that building because I'm recording everything in my mind. Or is it no recording on paper? If which says, shit, should I be allowed to take notes in the courtroom? Or should I be allowed to take notes at the criminal counter because I'm keeping a record there too? I mean, how ambiguous do you want to be? You know? That is just absolute bullshit. No recording is a suggestion because it's not legally backed. And in which case, they can suggest you don't wear pink shoes. Guess what? You can still wear pink shoes in the court. Yeah, it's true. In respect of your points 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 10, the main difference between CCTV recording by the Ministry and recording by a member of the public is that the Ministry will only use and disclose the footage for security purposes. Yeah? Well, I'll use it for security purposes and to gain evidence of wrongdoing by some fucking servant that thinks he's got the gall to tell me what I can and can't do when I'm acting lawfully or otherwise required by law. There is nothing to stop a member of the public putting their videos on YouTube or any other public forum or altering footage. Well, that is why people that are worth a salt and that actually post things on YouTube don't edit. I might, with mine, I'll show you from start to finish if you like. I don't need to edit anything. It's apparent what's happening. Although I will speed up, but usually there's a clock in a corner or something that's showing there's no interrupted time. So he's trying to say so people can nefariously alter and edit things to suit themselves. Or perhaps the staff shouldn't make comments like, I'm not going to drag anyone to come and see you, or to that effect. In respect of your point 9, deletion of CCTV footage is authorised under Section 21C of the Public Records Act 2005. Oh my God, Chris just gave us a legal reference. And here I was, thinking he was incapable. What do you know? Well done, Chris. Top notch. Now, if you could just supply something about recording in public, having something like that after it. And General Disposal Authority 6, Class 5112. Circumstances around direction to remove recording devices. This is to do with Rita and her seeking direction from Timmy. I have explained why I consider the Registrar's actions were appropriate. You consider that the Registrar's actions resulted in the judge acting in a biased way towards you. That's because he did. That is not something I can comment on. Of course not. You don't want to get in further trouble. And you can't comment on judicial decisions in courtrooms, can you, Chris? I am part of the executive branch of government. Tell you here, chap. Part of the executive branch of government, and it would be constitutionally inappropriate for me to comment on the conduct of a judge or a judicial decision. If you consider that a judge has behaved inappropriately, you can complain to the Judicial Conduct Commissioner at jcc.gov.nz. If you consider that the judicial decision is wrong, you can appeal it. He didn't make a decision. He just acted like a complete fucking tyrant and made a direction to have security intimidate and surround me, take my cameras off me, and then accused me of having an agenda, screamed at me, told me he was going to have me detained and held in contempt. I only wanted to be fully and fairly informed of the cause and nature of the proceedings as to make a fair and voluntary plea. He didn't even read out the charge sheet. He just said, oh, it's a speeding offence. He didn't tell me what section or what not. You know why? Because it wasn't on the charging document. Because you fuckers didn't do your shit right. So, he was biased. He did act that way. And part 14, I believe it is an enactment of exactly how he behaved. Like a complete fucking tosser. Alright? Or it might not be part 14. Part 6 actually shows the audio and video recording. So you can hear his tone. As for the JCC reference, yeah, I filed a complaint with the JCC. It took 9 months for them to get their shit back to me, where they stated they weren't going to go through every element of what I'd supplied them, and that as far as they're concerned, the judge spoke to me appropriately. Really? Well, the JCC is going to have their own little video posted on about them too, and I will show all the correspondence, because we don't want to edit things to suit a certain agenda, do we? I'm big on full transparency. I'll happily show you from day 1 to day 0 what the hell happened. Alright? This is why from the 15th of June, or beforehand, I've shown you every step of what I've done in the $80 ticket saga, because I'm not editing nothing. I respond to Chris on the 20th of April with the following. Good afternoon, Chris. Thank you for your email today in response to our letter dated the 10th of April 2018, which has avoided a tacit agreement at this stage, because you didn't fail to respond, Chris. We appreciate your suggestion to consult a property law book. However, we have no wish to do so. According to the Summary Offences Act 1981 Section 2, a public place, now see, there's a legal reference. A public place is deemed to be any place open to the public, be it fee or free. I'm paraphrasing. Which any public court building falls as. It is interesting that you refer to common law, as Verdant Affera of New Zealand Police Prosecutions on the North Shore has informed us in the past that New Zealand is not a common law country, so there appears to be some conflicting opinions around this. Whether a property is private or public, if open to the public, it is deemed a public place. As you have failed to supply evidence of these conditions of entry surrounding recording, and have failed to supply any policy of Auckland District Court in relation to this, nor have you supplied any legislative rule in support of your position, you have again failed to substantiate your claims that would infringe on our prescribed rights and freedoms under BORA Section 14. The case law reference is in relation to an appellant decision in context to an accused having a presumption of innocence and does not refer to recording in public, and is therefore irrelevant. It is not reasonable to expect privacy in a public building, hence why the word public is used. Whether a licence is implied to enter a public building, as we had expressed our intent numerous times, even prior to attending the first appearance on the 13th of July 2017, once expressed, there is no implication. It would appear that it is about controlling what is recorded and avoiding being held responsible, covered under some vague excuse of security that the Ministry of Justice record on one hand and yet deny others the same ability in the other. We were informed it was due to postings on the internet by the court security officer as to the reasoning behind having our possessions unlawfully seized. As no discussion was entered into with regards to this, Judge Black had given a direction from purely a one-sided opinion. This was extremely biased. The future postings soon to be released will satisfy any confusion on your part on this point. You are correct that you do not have any ability to control what is posted on YouTube. That must be irritating for you. However, as your staff have made privacy complaints previously in regards to postings, even though there is no expectation of such while serving the public in a public place, the face blurring technology works wonders to counter any sensitive creature's unreasonable expectations. YouTube have processes and procedures should any privacy or copyright be in breach, and it is not for yourself or the MOJ or the MOJ Ministry of Justice to dictate or police. Whether a location is private or public, if that location is open to the public, the eyes cannot trespass. Your reasoning falls short. It is a pity you believe you live in a free democratic society when in fact we live on Earth, and not a concept for control and governance, given that democracy can be defined as mob rule. Whether you consider Rita's actions and then Tim's direction to be appropriate or not, given the lack of justice supplied by the Ministry of Justice and any other government department these days, the general public, according to the ample comments made on many of our postings, you are in the minority. Everything we do in relation to any government agency is posted for maximum accountability and transparency, step by step, and we deem continuity to be important. We do not alter footage to suit a specific agenda. If we do something incorrect, we own it. Unlike most government agency employees or public servants that scatter from accountability like cockroaches with light shined on them, your responses have only strengthened our opinion on this point so far. Nothing to fear, nothing to hide, right? As for the JCC, a series is currently in production to deal with our complaints and their responses to date in relation to the JCC complaint we had already filed with regards to Tim and his actions. This was filed on the 14th of July. Bit late on that one, Chris. This has been informed multiple times to the Auckland District Court. Were you not aware? Your previous excuses have fallen short to date, and according to the legal advice we have obtained since the 10th of April 2018, in relation to your previous response, your excuses have no bearing, given that it is simply your opinion and not factually based with any legal, lawful or policy. Perhaps yourself and the Ministry of Justice are not used to someone actually knowing their rights, let alone exercising them, given the behaviour of most to date. Perhaps suggesting to your court security officers to not allow members of the public to enter the building with cameras would be in order, although it would be somewhat hypocritical to say the least. Thank you for actually supplying a legal reference to deletion of CCTV footage. Good to know. I knew you could do it if you tried hard enough, Chris. This was one of the many things we had discussed earlier this week with our legal advisors, as they found your previous letter somewhat lacking also. We see that yourself and Jackson seem to work in concert, as he too has just emailed us back. We shall now deal with his response. Should you or any other Ministry of Justice employee choose to infringe and prohibit any member of the public's rights and freedoms, expect to be held accountable for such. If this is unappealing, we suggest that you or any other public servant seek private sector employment. Warmest regards, me, P.S. We will not bother putting a failure to respond notice at the end of this one. Given your failures this far, we have no further wish to correspond with you. You have been weighed and measured by us, and considered to be unreasonable and unsatisfactory. We have no further need for your opinions, speculations, hyperbole, absent fact. This correspondence will be posted, of course. Any private personal information will be redacted. And that's what I sent him. And yeah, guess what? Now it's all just civil law. Civil law that Chris can't explain or give reference to. But he seems to know all the other references to how they can get away with shit, how their immunity is, how they can delete public records. He seems to know all that stuff. He just knows. And I would, dare I say the word, I would have belief, because I've not got any facts here, I would have the belief that Chris knows there is no law supporting prohibition of recording in a public place. This is why they revert to trespass, because they're the caretakers of the building, they're the court managers, they get to decide who gets to come in and who gets to go out. But the only way to prohibit somebody is if they do something unlawful. If I'm acting lawful in a public place, I can't be done. It's that simple. So, as I've said before, I will abide by law. You know, so if Chris could supply some law, that'd be great to know. But as it stands, yet again, nothing. Just a reference to civil law, and that's that. And then revert back to trespass. Hope you've all enjoyed this little saga, guys. Hopefully he doesn't respond again to me. We can have our fingers crossed on that one. If he does, there'll be a part 3. Because see, Chris doesn't seem to comprehend that every time he responds back, even though as far as I'm concerned I don't want to hear from him anymore, because he can't provide what I've been asking for time and time again. Every time he responds, he's just giving me more information, more to publish, and I wouldn't want to be accused of editing anything out now, would I? So, love you all. Hope you've enjoyed this. I am somewhat apologetic towards my ranting on. I'm not angry. I am just passionate about this sort of thing. After studying law for 5 or 6 years, guys, you get passionate about these things because you see it all so plainly as to how it all happens. So, like, subscribe, tell your friends, or don't. To all the government employees out there, be sure to put a thumbs down, that way I know how many of you hate my guts this week. And yeah, we'll catch up with you, I am certain, next time I'm around. Bye all.
It's been emotional.